Hello, everyone. I'm Susan Wloszczyna, Senior Editor at Gold Derby, and I'm very pleased to have Sasha Stone, who's the founder and queen of the Awards Daily site, and Jazz Tangcay of Variety. They're two of our Gold Derby experts that I trust implicitly to be here because right now the Oscar season, as we know it, will be dismantled a little bit, and I need them to tell me, what they think is going to happen this year because things like movie theaters are closed, and there's a pandemic going on, and who knows what festivals will be held or not held, and we may have to all do the Hamilton thing with every movie we see from now on. So who knows? I don't know, but there are some very good films if we can see them coming out. But you had I don't know. I mean, where you are in LA, are theaters open at all?
No, no. First of all, great to see you both. Thank you for having me on this, the lone outsider.
Right.
But we're all family from way back, right?
Right.
I'm just, to take a little bit of time saying that Susan and I once got very, very drunk at the Savannah Film Festival. Are we allowed to say that on this
I think I'm still drunk from it.
we drank so much.
Yes,
right?
but we had fun. Miles Teller was around, and the guy whose mother wrote the Bridge to Terabithia just wanted to hang out with us, and we just had a good time and saw some good movies too.
And it just seems like the world that was yesterday and is never coming back, where we could actually sit at a table together and talk and laugh and then go sit in a movie theater and hang out with people and not worry about germs. I mean, I feel like this thing's going to be with us for not the virus itself, but the fear of it for years after. We're never going to be the same.
Yeah, but
so, just to answer your question about LA, which is no, I don't think people are going back to the movies. They're barely going back to restaurants at this point because we're hitting the spike right now.
Right.
Another spike. So nobody knows where it's going, if it's going to go back. Because for a while there, the death count was going down and the cases were going high, but now the death count has caught up and is now again rising. And so I think people are worried. I think they should just get a hazmat suit. You put it on, you zip it up, you go into the theater, you watch the movie, leave the theater, you take it off, you put it in a bucket, and then you go to your car.
I'm right now more afraid of public toilets.
Oh!
Yes, there's that.
Yeah.
So, you got to dehydrate yourself just to keep safe.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
We have drive-in theaters, right?
But
is that
drive-in? I can't do. I went to a rest stop on my latest road trip, and I walked into the rest stop, and I thought, "Oh wow, I'm in a place right now where just people have been coming in and out from all over the place," and I just suddenly got crippled with fear that, I know they keep it clean, and you can keep yourself clean, and but still, there's just germs everywhere. Anyway.
Well, right now it seems like, we kind of know that the festivals aren't going to be as large. The Toronto Festival said they might do virtual and physical, but with distancing. But even that, I would, be not, wanting to do that. So basically, I don't know how these are going to affect the big films, but you made a good suggestion to me, Sasha, that things with big stars and major directors will probably survive being on a smaller format like Netflix or something like that. And some of them are already, like Mank is a Netflix thing, and there's others too. So I just wonder, Jazz, what do you hear, what do you know from your colleagues and people you've interviewed, for anything, relating to the Oscar season? What do you think is going to happen?
I think personally, I thought we would be back to normal by August at least, and things would slowly start, opening up. But as Sasha said, everything's spiking and we're kind of like in this stalemate. In terms of festivals, so many people that I've spoken to, both just critics, are like, I don't want to go anywhere near a film festival. And then you've got talent. Like, is talent going to want to go to a film festival? So I think digital might be the way forward. And as Sasha said, like, those big films will survive. Like Tenet Tenet can open and people will go and see it. I'm sure if Warner dropped it tomorrow, people would pay $20. This is what we pay to go to the movies anyway. Stuff like, Fincher's movie, that can open. People love Fincher. So I don't know, like, there's a lot of uncertainty. Like, how are they going to even host an Oscar ceremony, as Sasha said, with this PTSD of fear that we've all got, right?
Right. Yeah.
I remember last year I was at the Oscars right before, when Parasite won, right before the pandemic it came here and they shut everything down. And it was like February, it was early. It was just so happened that it had been pushed back 2 weeks. So it was February. And I thought, I just suddenly remembered, wow, that could have been such a petri dish if we really didn't know what was going on. And because people come from all over the world and they're in this tiny enclosed space. It's not tiny, but it's enclosed and it's the worst case scenario for spreading that. And so, but I think that Telluride is a weird situation because it's right next to Arizona, and Arizona is getting hammered and Colorado isn't. And so are they really going to go for having all these people come into their tiny little retirement village?
Not from New York and LA, no.
Right. So I don't know,
right.
I'm going to cancel it.
I talked to P. Hammond and Ann Thompson a little bit about this, and I just sent them questions to answer and all that. But they were wanting to go Telluride, but they're not going to let people from outside in. I mean, it'll just be a local thing. Venice is probably just going to be local people there, and Toronto will be whatever. They're kind of optimistic to think that anyone would want to sit in the theater right now. But I'm so sad because the last movie I saw in the theater was Cats. So there you go. But yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
But I think you're onto something. Well, two things you said to me in your email, that you thought that big stars and big movies will be the things that people will gravitate to for awards now, especially with 10 slots now, right? So
I mean, is that this year? Is it taking place this year, or is it for next year? I can't remember. The 10 that they're expanding to. I don't know if they're starting it this year, but basically what we saw for all of us who've been doing this for half of our lives, it's like we know that it went. For me, I started in 1999, and it went from your big Oscar movies, all in the race where all the public saw them and everybody was involved in them, the Gladiator years, Titanic, the big Oscar public events movies that were nominated. And then as the years wore on and independence kind of rose and things started to shift to festivals and to smaller movies into independence. And what was really keeping this alive were these kind of these high profile screenings that they would have in town where, Ben Affleck would host a screening for a smaller movie, and then it would suddenly become, with the right strategist, they could make a small movie look like a big movie. And so, but they were very carefully brought to the Academy voters. I think that's gone because they can't hold these kind of screenings. They can barely, you notice you're getting all these emails from publicists trying to ask you to see these movies. Nobody's going to have any interest in seeing the smaller films. They're going to see the big movies that are like, okay, well, I know for sure that that's a big Oscar movie with this director. I mean, sure, they're going to still be looking at, you know, the smaller films, but I don't know that you can build the same kind of consensus and buzz that you could before right now that you can build with these. How do you even separate them out? There's going to be so many of them all on VOD.
Well, I get the feeling they're not going to send physical like DVDs anymore. There'll be more links to everything, you know, and especially for, you know, Oscar voters or for Golden Globes or whatever. They probably, I mean, that's a lot of expense, and now more people are getting used to getting just links to movies and stuff. So I think that will be the way of how most voters now will see stuff. But it's kind of crazy, something like Tenet, you know, it's going to be bigger than life to be whatever size your TV screen is. So, like Dunkirk, what would have happened to that if that was seen?
I know. Forget it. And
it wouldn't even fit in my family room.
How are you going to get people turn on? The problem with VOD is that voters can turn it off after 15 minutes or get bored. Like Roma was particularly hard for people to watch because with Roma, you really had to get through that first 30 minutes to be.
Right.
And if I hadn't been trapped in
all the water, the dog.
So I, you know, to be trapped in the theater and having to watch it, you have to get through that first, and then you're rewarded with this beautiful movie. But I feel like with a movie like Dunkirk, you might be after 20 minutes just be like, I mean, not to say anything bad. I don't. Yeah, I think it's a great movie, but you know, you might be like, oh, I just can't take this anymore. Click, and that's so easy to do, and you can't do that in the screening. So how do you get people to watch these kind of harder hitting films that are smaller movies that require your attention without a big star pushing them? Not to mention the fact that a lot of Oscar movies now, for the last 5 years or 10 years that social media has been around, they really do become part of this conversation that's happening online with all these people. And that's still going to go on, right? But it's just, I don't know how you get to Academy voters to just build that kind of prestige and importance around smaller movies. Or maybe it goes back to how it used to be in the early days before, you know, things changed.
Well, I have a list of titles that seem to be in the running, and you know, it's also an 8-month season, so they're twisting the rules of everything. Like, you know, you have to, if you were going to show it in a theater, right, for qualification, but now you can't, you had to have that intent to begin with, you know? So if you go online, you can still qualify, but you know, it's like you couldn't do it, but you intended to do it. It's weird. I mean, these rules that they've set up, and then now it's going to be April 27th. It's going to be the longest thing in the world.
And that's the other reason is how do you keep like a little movie going along all that time without, remember Bong Joon-ho? Man, that guy was at every single party and event. Right. He was everywhere, and that's what built, I mean, obviously Parasite's a great movie, but the trick was just getting people to watch it, and how he got people to watch it and to like him was appearing everywhere. Well, that's over. So if you're Christopher Nolan or David Fincher, you know, you don't really need that because you've already got it built in, but some of these, and then it's like coming, and ironically and strangely and bizarrely, it's coming at a time where there's going to be more demand for women directors and more demand, you know, so they're going to want inclusion. They're going to want a lot of the fringe movies that wouldn't ordinarily be prominent major releases to be taken as seriously as the prominent major releases. And that's going to be all the more difficult to, you know, you just got to hope that it all lands right, or else
well,
it's going to be bad.
How are people still going to be talking about like the Five Bloods, right, which dropped on June?
Yeah,
it's still going to be talking about April during the period. Like,
no, that's not gonna. I mean, anything coming out now, forget it. You know, right now.
But you did bring up another point, which is the whole Black Lives Matter, and also the controversy last year about, you know, not having a woman director up for anything. So I don't know, you know, right now, On the Rocks. Sofia Coppola has that, but that's about the only major title I see tossed around that has a woman behind it. So, I mean, there's Chloe, how you say, Zoe with Nomadland too, and she's gotten some acclaim, in the past. But most of these bigger titles that people are tossing around are by men. And
exactly, you can see the disaster coming from a mile away. Just like last year, I could see the disaster coming. I knew exactly what was going to happen, but because you can tell, you're like, okay, you're keeping score. You're thinking, okay, this is what are we really going to be predicting all acting categories with all white actors? And yes, that's exactly what we were doing for months, and nobody stopped to say, wait a second, this isn't going to be good. That it's every category has 5 white acting contenders, and that's how it ended up. But people weren't thinking about it, but they'll be thinking about it this year. They'll be trying harder to diversify their choices, but at the same time you still have to build a consensus. You can't have you need thousands of people to vote, right? So
and like you say, there's that problem where you do once in a while want to stop the thing you're watching and that's just bad.
Some people say it took me 5 times to get through, for instance, The Irishman. Like I just kept turning it off and I kept going. And then when I finally made it through, it was a really good movie. But I mean, I not me. I'm just saying other people have told me that. But I just get the feeling that if it's a slow movie and nothing's happening in the first 30 minutes, even if everything happens in the last 5 minutes, I think you're going to end up losing a lot of people. You know what? It's going to be a very strange thing. So ordinarily, right about now, we'd be talking about what was going to Telluride in Toronto and Venice. And that would be where we're building our hype around those movies. And then after that, we would move into New York Film Festival and AFI Film Festival. And all of these are in-person events, all of them. They're schmoozing with stars. They're big screenings that got standing ovations and that are reviewed. Now we're really literally going to be only depending on people who watch them and write about them instead of audiences, who see them. It's going to be very, very strange,
Yeah.
So how are we going to cover this?
I don't know. I really don't. I mean, I guess we'll just do it the way we always do it. But I don't know what the Oscars are going to mean this year. You know what I mean? Because there's so much pressure on them to sort of, with these new measures to, kind of mandate their filming crews, make them diverse and inclusive and their subject matter. And I'm looking at some of these films and I'm thinking, how bad is that going to be? Like we're in the kind of the fallout phase of the good, the positive forces of Black Lives Matter. And we're into the kind of witch hunt phase of the fear and paranoia of what did this person say 20 years ago in a Google Groups post that might get them canceled or whatever. And during the Oscar race, I know this is controversial. I'm not supposed to talk about it, but I'm just saying, like, we have to contend with that. It's going to be 10 times worse because we don't have the backing of these big screenings. All we have is a movie, a bunch of people talking about that movie, and a machine that's kind of built to scrutinize the content, the people involved. So you're going to have to be somebody who's Teflon to really get through that. I don't know how it's going to go in terms of some of the films that I'm looking at that I think that my radar tells me these are big Oscar movies, right? So Tom Hanks is in one, Aaron Sorkin's movie, David Fincher's movie. I mean, these are, meat and potatoes, white guy movies, right? So how's that going to play? Who knows, right? It's going to be good or bad. I mean, is Aaron Sorkin's entire history going to be dragged out? So fasten your seatbelts, ladies.
Well, that movie, though, The Trial of Chicago 7, I think will play well because we're in the protest era all of a sudden again.
Yeah, that's true.
And so I think, I mean, these all sound like interesting movies, but again, it's not, it's like people who are already made most of them, they're already admired people. And I think, again, those are the things, with cachet like that. People are already there. And so I do think it's going to be harder for these small films unless, I mean, what would have happened to Parasite? You know, so who knows? I mean, that just was word of mouth. I mean,
and him, being everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, he really he did Jeff Bridges in Crazy Heart. He was at everything. He was on every red carpet. He was at every party. He was charming and charismatic and funny and just, you know, he was like Jeff Bridges. There was not an event that the guy didn't show up at. So how are you going to do that this year? You won't be able to. I mean, ideally for the Hollywood community right now, like Chloe Zhao would win Best Director and her Sight Unseen would win Best Picture. Then people would feel like there was progress made and it wasn't a problem for them, and a woman of color can win, and that would be great for everybody. So if the movie, I think people are going to be looking out for that movie and wanting it to do really well. And that alone could push a smaller movie through if there's advocacy for it for that reason. Yeah. Otherwise, it's really hard in this climate to make a case for this movie should be rewarded because it's a really good movie. Like, I don't think that's going to be, because there's going to be a lot of really good movies. There's going to have to be an additional incentive to push it through the noise to get it to where it can build the buzz to compete with some of the bigger films. I mean, otherwise it's like, you know, what's going to win? I don't know. If you had picked right now, in previous years, we could look at the race and say, this is what I think is going to win.
Yeah.
But this year, anything coming to you of what could win?
I don't know. But one question is how, and you talk about this a lot, Sasha, is how is the election going to impact the Oscars?
The election, right? Then there's that.
We've got a pandemic, no film festivals, and we've got an election year. Like,
and we've got Donald Trump maybe winning re-election.
Please no.
Remember
I don't want to see that movie.
Remember when Trump was elected, it was the Moonlight La La Land year. And the minute Trump won, all of a sudden, La La Land was like, what is this movie? You know, like, what is this? This is not. In the time between that Hamilton showing on Broadway and being everybody's favorite play because Barack Obama was president, and it was like, wow, a black man is president in America. That is something to be living through. That feels revolutionary. And here comes Hamilton, like echoing that sentiment and that mood of the country at that moment. Now, 4 years later, Hamilton comes out and people are like, wait a second, what? These guys are good guys and they're, you know, played by black actors. What are you talking about? These guys are supposed to be slavers, enemies. We can't stand them, you know. So everything has, all of our perspectives have shifted. You know, and even Hamilton can't really survive. So, I mean, it's doing fine, but you know what I mean? Like, it can't spark the same magic of that moment because Trump's presence is so oppressive and, you know, unavoidable. So anything that wins is going to be something that addresses and speaks. Either that or it's going to be like Oliver in 1968. It's going to be a movie that is totally away from any politics at all. It just takes you into a different world.
But you know, everything's politics. It truly is.
Especially now, because we don't even have audiences to count on anymore.
Right.
We can't say, well, wow, that movie was such a huge hit.
So I'm going to read off the list of Best Picture contenders that I think, you know, meet the criteria of being by, you know, important or something that people might want to see. But okay, so there's this Hillbilly Elegy that's Glenn Close and Amy Adams with Ron Howard directing.
That's going to get savaged.
Well, Hillbilly, just having something with Hillbilly.
That's going to get ripped apart. It's going to get ripped apart. It is. No, because of the guy that wrote it is you know, it's going to get, yeah, be prepared for that one. That's going to get major blowback.
And then No Man Land, which is Frances McDormand.
Going to do very well.
Yeah. Dune, now the first Dune, you're not old enough, Jazz, probably, but the first Dune was a complete, utter flop. No one went to see it at all. It was David Lynch. He shouldn't have ever done that film. But this might, you know, this is your buddy from Arrival, Sasha. You love that
But also,
movie.
hey, if Dune had come out during COVID, then you would never have known that it bombed, and maybe it would have done better in the old doom. You know, like we don't even have that measurement of like, wow, it bombed. So in a way, it's kind of a lucky break for something.
Right.
You're never gonna measure. I didn't even think of that. That's the contrast to it. You can't say, wow, nobody went. It's like First Man, which bombed at the box office. You can't say that. Now you're just a pure movie. So could be a benefit to some of these films.
Yeah. And then Ridley Scott, you know, Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, I think, wanted to get another screenplay Oscar or something because they wrote it. But The Last Duel, which is kind of like his first movie was Duel. So I don't know how that connects, but we'll see. I'm very interested in David Fincher's Mank, though. And it was going to be on Netflix anyway. That's one of their, you know, things. So I think that's supposed to kind of emulate black and white and 30s era and all that. So that's going to be very cool. News of the World, that's Tom Hanks getting together with Greengrass again.
Sounds really good, that one.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah. And The Five Bloods, look, I watched it. It wasn't perfect. I love Delroy Lindo, so if he gets nominated, I would be fine with that. But I think Black Klansman has it all over that because he got, you know, when you go to Netflix, you get the link issue because they hire, you know, they get Spike Lee. They're going to let him do whatever he wants, you know.
Exactly.
So it was a little long.
That's the drawback with Netflix's model is that they need to, you know, a little bit of discipline is a good thing sometimes with directors. Right. Certainly with The Irishman, I would say that. And with this one, you know, if you have to worry about an audience and you have to worry about, you're going to be a little bit tighter reined with your story. And I think that it's not always the best thing to just give directors as much, you know, time and money and that they want in Final Cut. Like I think you do have to sort of, if you want to make a, you know, a really good movie that works. I'm not saying The Five Bloods isn't. I liked it. I loved Delroy Lindo. I thought the last part was the best part. And if the movie had been that, it would have been. But the problem is Black Klansman is so much better. So I don't know how you're going to reward a movie that's not as good as the last movie.
You're right. And Stillwater, Tom McCarthy. Think
looks good.
Matt Damon.
Matt Damon again. Yeah, he just.
How many is he in? 3? Is he in 3 movies before? I think he's in 3. That one. Yeah. I think he's in 3 movies.
Okay.
Well, so he's in.
Well, good for him. So, and then Come On is Mike Mills and his Joaquin Phoenix. And he's traveling around with a daughter or something. It's not very jokery. So. We'll see how that goes. And Tenet is probably going to be incredible, but not in the way it's supposed to be if we were watching it on our phones. So
how many people are going to watch it all the way through the end? I hope no, because you're right that his whole thing is theatrical spectacle, and to lose that is going to be significant. Then it's going to be story and actor, but when I hear about that, I think, well, you know, that's going to probably get better praised than some of these movies because you're naming them, and I'm thinking, and this is probably bad, but I'm thinking like white guy, white guy, white guy, white guy, white guy, and that, you know, in this climate, that's not going to play.
Right.
So I'm just trained myself over the years to, you know, see what's coming, what trends, how people are going to react to them, and I just know that it's already been a problem, right? And it's not even just it's just what people are hungry for, what they want, what they're interested in seeing. And I feel like they're going to be interested in seeing something that feels like right now. And Tenet might be that movie. Who knows? You know?
Right. And so we talked about the trial of Chicago 7, but West Side Story, I kind of fear for that. Has Spielberg ever done much with music? I don't know. And the casting, I don't know what's going to happen with that. So
hasn't Ansel been cancelled anyway? So
I think so, except for the fact that part of the cancellation was canceled by the fact that it's such a it's going to be the cast that has the most people of color in it, and it's sort of correcting the brown face from the brilliant, it should be said, Robert Wise version. But I don't know why. I'm sorry, I love Steven Spielberg. I'm a huge fan, and no offense, but why did you pick Steven Spielberg to direct this film?
Has he done anything musical, really. I mean, he has great soundtracks, but I don't know. Yeah.
A musical about race relations in New York.
I know.
And so why Spielberg? Like, no, because there's so many other people you could pick, for that. Beyonce would have been a great choice to direct that.
Right.
But they're going straight down the line here, and I'm not sure what that's about. But I gotta just hope. How in the heck is he gonna know how to do all the choreography and the music and everything? Like, being a fan of musicals doesn't mean you can direct them.
Yeah. No, that's a movie I saw in a drive-in. It was there forever. This drive-in does it. Yeah. It was there for 2 years.
Wow.
Or more. I mean, that's what happened with movies back then. We barely get them at all now. Because
they're only out for like 3 or 4 weeks and it's like gone.
Right. Yeah.
But what do you guys think about the Ansel Elgort thing? Do you think he's going to get? You think it's going to matter? I don't know. Like, I think people are just like, I don't want to touch.
It popped up for a second, but I mean, I don't know if it was the women who were accusing him on Twitter or just somebody heard something. I don't know. I'm sure.
I feel like it. I think people are still. What do you think, Jen?
I said I think it's going to spring up again. Like, I don't think they're done with it yet. Especially the closer we get to the movie release, it's going to come up and Twitter is going to be hell again. And yeah, they
what happens. Oh, I don't know if you want me to talk about this on a family.
No, you don't. You're right. Don't go too far. We'll just see what happens.
We won't go too far. But that's just to say that the waves on Twitter happen by one person tweeting something, and then it can turn into a big thing. And I think it's coming out early enough that it might have time to sort of die down by the time.
Yeah. Well, it seemed like it was there over the holiday weekend and then kind of fizzled. I mean, because people now are writing more about what's up for Academy Awards, and they don't basically bring this up the way they did with Birth of a Nation or something. So
right.
And he didn't make the film, so
yeah, no, he's in it. And why should one person, bring down an entire production that all these people spend so much of their time? But that's a separate issue from can Steven Spielberg deliver.
We'll see. Maybe he had it in him all along. I don't know. But I want to see Next Goal Wins because it's Taka. How do you say his last name?
Waititi.
Say it again.
Taika Waititi.
Okay, you say it instead of me. Yeah. But that's about a Samoan American soccer team it's like that thing with the Bahamian, like, sledders in the Olympics. What was it? Yeah. So it's going to be that, but with his kind of input, his humor. And it has Michael Fassbender, who I haven't seen in ages, unfortunately. So it could be good. I don't know.
That sounds really good. I like your list. So
yeah, and then the French Dispatch, which is such a Wes Anderson title. So we'll see how that goes, but it's going to be like his other movies, and which I do like. And I don't know, what was his last movie? The Isle of Dogs, right?
Isle of Dogs.
Yeah. Which I love.
Yeah, and again, like, it's just one of these weird things where movies are communal experiences, and a lot of these movies of his, especially, they rose up because a bunch of people saw them in a movie theater and liked them together. Like, so I don't know how it's going to work now. It's just going to be them watching the movie and them filtering out information that they're getting online from press about them.
Right.
So it's a weird thing because some of these movies that get nominated, like Bohemian Rhapsody, for instance, you just don't understand. Green Book's another one. You just don't understand, if you spend a lot of time online, how these movies could do so well in the Oscar race, given how people are talking about them. But then you remember, well, because they saw them in a theater, and that experience is irreplaceable, right? So we don't want that to go away. But at the same time, what's the demographic for Academy members? They're like, what, 60 plus? They're not going to put their lives in danger to sit in a movie theater. So.
Right. Well, we can catch up again in a couple of months and see where we stand, because I go on the wiki site for film 2021, and then they have a whole section on what coronavirus is doing, and things are just getting pushed back and back and back. I mean, there are, supposedly Tenet's going to come out in August now, but no, it's not. It's not.
Not here in LA, that's for sure. But I would wonder, my question just as an Oscar watcher is, does this mean that movies that come out in December are going to have a better chance? In the past, because the Oscars are so early, they're pretty much, they don't get time to build buzz. So I'm wondering if a December, even a January release might have
something
a
like
chance.
Respect, the Aretha Franklin bio could be. I mean, I don't know the director. I think it's a woman who did it, but
because in the old days, a summer movie wouldn't have maybe one or two every now and then, but for the most part, it was backloaded to December, and so I think maybe we'll get back to that at least this year, where the later movies can gain some of the momentum. Anything that can be seen in the theater is going to do better.
Yeah.
I think.
Any last words from you, Jazz, about what you see happening? Are you getting more interviews now because nobody can go promote things? So
I mean, it's easier to schedule interviews because it's like, what are you doing? Like, what?
That's right.
It's working with time zones. Like, I spoke to Russell Crowe. He was in Australia and his makeup artist was here in LA. And it was like, we did that in the afternoon. So I'm definitely getting more interviews. What do I see happening? I think, like Sasha said, as long as people can sit through films without going to their phones in like the first 10 minutes. But I think the whole community aspect of, I just saw this movie, what did you think about it? That's all gone. Like, you're not turning to somebody sharing in like a crying moment or like a laughing moment. Like Sasha, we saw Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
I was just going to say that.
Right?
And we saw 1917 and we were sitting in a row crying, all of us.
Right.
So it was like we, if we had that experience, Jazz and I particularly loved Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and a lot of my love for the movie had to do with that screening that we saw it, and we enjoyed it so much,
So what's going to happen, right, with the narrative, with that aspect gone? Like, what are you going to push more without that, I think?
No, I saw Ford versus Ferrari, which a gang of male critics. And it was just like red meat for, the males, they just ate it up, and I felt their energy. I can't tell one car from another on the screen, but guys have that thing where they go, that's a 1984, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, what? Well, how do you know that?
Yeah, that in particular was an audience movie. If people had just watched Ford v Ferrari on their videos, I don't think it would have, on their VODs, whatever you want to call it. And maybe this is true of Tarantino's movie too, which is that Ford v Ferrari was one of the reasons I loved it so much, was the audience experience, without a doubt, because when you heard you knew, I'd seen it like 6 times or something by the time the season came to an end, but when you knew a funny scene was coming up, you just waited and anticipated for the same with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. You just waited for the audience to erupt,
right?
And sometimes applause. That's just, I
don't know. Okay. Well, we'll reconvene again when things, maybe in the fall, and see where things are going a little bit. But it's strange times, but thank God for movies anyway.
Thank God for movies.
Yes.
Thank God for you two wonderful people. I think we should have a girl gang, and we should do this more often.
I would be all for that.
I'm all going for that. Totally.
We'll do that. I'll make time glad to be a regular occasion. So
there you go. He can pop in. Oh, he would love this conversation.
Yes. Well, he was very happy I came up with this idea. So at least we're ahead of the game a little bit. Just laying out there what might happen. So thank you. For
you're welcome. And the more I think we talk about this, the better. I think everybody, people are looking for leaders right now in terms of figuring out how this is going to go, since we're all flying blind. So I think the more, we come together and discuss it, I think the better it is for everybody. You know.
Yeah. Well, thank you again. Be safe. Be well.
Thank
it's
you.
lovely to see your beautiful faces, and I feel better already. So
That's good.
bye-bye.